Howdy, internet. Updating ye oldie in the bag because I've made a couple changes, not a ton of changes, but I've kind of simplified things a little bit. Upper park shift, highly recommended. It's kind of minimalist, but like the coolest thing about it is that this stack of discs sits closer to your back. Like if most, bags have a stack of discs sitting this way, and it puts the weight farther away from your center of gravity. So this is like, it feels lighter, and because it's loaded closer to your center of gravity, like good backpacking theory, right? I got this because of that, and it forces you to carry less discs. Like if you're taking 32 discs on a round, you're probably kidding yourself, honestly. Like unless you actually know all those discs very well, you would probably throw better throwing fewer of them. If you're on the Pro Tour and you know that many discs and they all do something different for you, that's great. And it's totally fun to carry that many discs. If you like that and that's your thing, that's great. But I like more of a minimalist approach. So getting more out of fewer discs is kind of more my thing. So let's start with theory of operation. So on that front, I decided to try to limit myself to only putting 2 discs in each one of these slots. So there's 2 in every slot, so it's totally not overloaded. I can fit 3 in these ones and 3 in some of these if I want to, but I don't want to, so I don't. But that said, I used to have like a practice bag and a round bag. So if I was playing competitively, not that I compete, I would have, the things that I throw with backups for the discs that I throw often that I might potentially lose during a round. And then I would carry, if I was doing a practice round, I would have, like 5 or 6 copies of the same mold if I know I'm going to throw that a lot or work on a certain shot or something. So I've kind of moved away from that. I'll still do that if I need to. If I'm having like a super dedicated practice round, I'll bring a bunch of copies of whatever I'm working on. But I still have some redundancy here. So if I throw a bad shot, I can throw another one and kind of try to redeem myself just so I'm not practicing failure as much. So there's some redundancy. And the start of that is these are my backup putters. So backup throwing putters, maidens, still using maidens. BT soft for the putters and VIP for the throwers. So I've got a backup set of those in one of my pockets. Putting putters in a compression pocket is not a good idea. So what I do to mitigate that is I make sure that I always stack it perfectly with a VIP so that it's not getting tweaked in the compression pocket. So those are here's my main ones that I use. Those are my backups. So I've got extra of those. And then approach, I'll throw the maiden on anything that's neutral to a tiny bit of fade. If I want a ton of fade or if I'm throwing a forehand, I will throw a zone. Relatively recent addition. I understand why everyone throws this disc. It's solid. I got my hands on a Toro at the store, which competes for this slot. I guess theoretically it's a little more overstable, but I want to try one of those just for fun. But the zone is probably better for forehands, but the Toro felt really good in my hand too, so I'll try that one. So overstable approach is the zone. Understable approach, I just got this. It's a GG Sonic, and I really like it. It's kind of a weird thing. It's a -4 turn, which that's probably wrong if we were sciencing flight numbers. But if you throw it at a 1 speed, it doesn't turn like a -4. But it does fix my most common mistake, which is I think of maidens as very straight and very stable, neutral stable, because I throw them with just enough snap that they barely fade. Like over a 200, 250 foot shot, it'll drift maybe a foot if I'm trying to keep it straight. So I think of it as super straight. And then I go and I try to throw an Annie that I want to stay on Annie and drift right. And because I'm throwing it up, the maiden goes up, and then it says, no, I don't want to stay on Annie, and it fades out, and I end up in the bushes off the left side of where I wanted to end up. So that is my most common mistake. I do that 1 or 2 times per round, still to this day. But the Sonic fixes that. If I put it on an Annie, it will just stay on an Annie a lot better because that's what the disc is trying to do. So using an overstable putter on an Annie is like fighting the disc. Don't do that. Just get a disc that wants to make the shape you're trying to make, and you will have a much bigger margin for error. So Sonic, like it. It also can be released flat and just have a little tiny bit of drift right that stays drifting right. So as someone who sticks pretty strictly to backhands just for fun as a limitation, Sonic is an excellent way to kind of sneak more of that going right shape without dipping into forehands too much. So that's approaches. Then mids, I throw EMAC truths a lot. I have like 6 of them now. So this is my most beat in one. This one's in the middle. And all of my straight shots, I kind of think about it like a maiden. If thrown well, it will stay pretty much straight and not fade a lot. If thrown where you want it to fade, not as much spin, maybe adding more height so it dumps, it'll fade a decent amount pretty consistently. If I really power up on them, if my form is good, they will turn a decent amount for me. So I have to be aware of my power level in terms of that, because I can overdrive them if I've been playing a lot. So I got 2 of those. And then more stable. If I want more stable than that, I'll just throw the zone. 2 things that I just pulled out of my bag when I went back to more of a minimalist thing are a brand new truth, which theoretically has a little more fade. And then I just picked this up used. It's a Bard from Westside. So a tick more overstable than a truth, but still feels like it's got a little more of that rock type rim, but it's not so deep that it bugs me. Like really deep rim discs bug me, and this is about pushing how much I'm uncomfortable with. So I had this was fighting for the slot with the zone, but like having both of these and a zone is like kind of too much. Like I had them all in my bag because I was just trying them all out. But I think the zone really does something that none of my other discs can do, and these don't really do that, so they're kind of tabled for the moment. Another thing that came out of the bag that probably shouldn't come out of the bag, if I'm not trying to be super minimalist, I will carry a river or 2, because they're just so shapeable that there's no reason not to. So I should throw these more. If I was trying to be competitive, I would spend a lot more time with this disc and be calibrated on it, because you can get all of your shapes out of it. You're not going to get extreme left or extreme right out of it, but anything straight to a little bit of turn to a little bit of fade, you can get out of a river. So I'm looking at putting those back in, but trying to be mindful of carrying too much stuff. So back to the actual bag. Understable mids, these are 2 Discraft soles. If you haven't thrown a disc that's dyed like this, do yourself a favor, either make one or go get one and throw it, because it is so fun to watch them spin where you can see the colors. Like the one yellow and red mid that Simon has, like that he throws on coverage, or he used to at least a couple months ago. It's so fun watching discs spin and being able to see the spin. So these are my understable mids. They're understable mids. So if I'm throwing uphill and I want a little more distance, I'll go understable. If I have a fairway that just drifts right a little tiny bit, I'll throw the sol and just release it flat and let it drift a little bit. It's kind of like the Sonic, but in a mid. So that's that. Overstable mid, again, another truth or a Bard are an option, or honestly, I'd just throw the zone is kind of what I'm going for in my current bag. So then fairways, I have 2 T-Birds. These are the 2 grippiest ones that I have, because that tends to help me throw them better. So these aren't particularly seasoned or anything. They're T-Birds. They do T-Bird stuff. So this is the vast majority of my, fairway range shots. Again, I would work in the river if I was doing more distance. So I just played a really short course, so I didn't have a ton of, and I'm trying to not throw a ton of drivers because I don't need to. So this is my main distance option for fairway distance. And then if I really need distance, if I'm trying to get an easy 350 or push farther than that, I have a couple of Dynasties, and I love these discs. Like, this is what a DX T-Bird feels like to me is in a premium plastic. So you move up to a 9-speed and then you get about the same flight numbers. It's a -1, 2. So these do have a decent amount of flip up for me, which puts them in very shapeable, you know, range like rivers, but with just a little more speed, a little more carrying distance. Yeah, so this is my driver currently. If I, you know, it says it's a control driver, but I think of it as my distance driver really, because that's where my arm speed is at right now. So 10s. If I'm really going for more distance, I will throw beasts as well. So I'll throw a few champion beasts and slightly different stabilities in to kind of fill out the top end of the bag more. But these get me everything from a flex to a flip up flex to a flip up laser beam all in one disc, which is kind of my favorite thing. And then 2 bonus discs that are not really in the bag, but they're kind of like utility things for me. And these are fighting for the same slot, is a Champion Firebird and a Fenrir, I think it is, from Viking, the one with the bear on it. I still haven't thrown this yet, but it's a 10403. Like, I feel like I know what it does. So these are fighting for the same slot, just a matter of hand feel and what I like better. The Firebird's pretty flat, but this has a touch more dome to it. I don't know how that works, if it's supposed to be overstable, but Firebirds are really hard to throw well. They require a lot of snap to stay lasered at all. But if I need something that I know is going to dump left reliably, that's what this is for. So I've kind of got flip up and flex covered with the Dynasty, and then overstable covered with one of these two. And they're still in competition for which one's actually going to be that utility shape. But that's it. So kind of trying to run less discs. Again, I would like to put the rivers back in and put the 10 speeds back in if my arm speed ever gets back up to where that seems productive. And like I do throw the beasts well, but they don't really do anything the Dynasty can't do. So I feel like I have my bases pretty well covered with that. So that's the update. Thanks for watching if you're still here. See you next time.